Hello and welcome to Not a Car November. On the docket today is my four-wheeler. It's a two-stroke Polaris four-wheeler from 1994. Giddy up! Better shut that off before I die of carbon monoxide instantly. Now this thing does have an electric starter, but the battery's dead, or at least too dead to turn over the engine. But thankfully there is a backup pull starter. It's quite hard to pull, but this thing's warm, so it shouldn't be too hard to start. Put it in neutral, there we go. The good news is, I don't have to replace the battery if I don't want to. This is my four-wheeler, or ATV, or quad, or whatever you want to call it. I typically say four-wheeler, even though that's more of a mouthful than all the other choices. It was made by Polaris in the year of our Lord, 1994. And the only reason I know that is because it says so right on the front of the thing. This thing is powered by a single-cylinder, air-cooled, two-stroke engine with a displacement that I'm 90% sure is 250 cc's. It used to say on a plastic panel right here what the size of the engine was, but that panel is long gone and lost to time, so I'm only mostly sure that it's 250 cc's, and I have no idea what the power output is. It's zippy. Power is transferred from the engine to the wheels through a belt drive CVT, or as Polaris calls it, a PVT, because marketing, I guess. The transmission has a high and a low speed. The engine is two-stroke, but it's also oil injected, so you don't have to pre-mix the gas, which is nice. The oil tank lives up here and the gas tank lives here, and it mixes them together automatically, so you don't have to pre-mix it yourself like some sort of heathen. It has a fully independent McPherson strut front suspension and the livest of live rear axles. As it says right here, this is two-wheel drive and not four-wheel drive, but I've never really had a problem with that. If it gets stuck, the thing's so light you can just sort of pick it up and shimmy it around out of being stuck. So I've never seen a problem with it being two-wheel drive. They did make a four-wheel drive version of this, and I think they called it the Trail Boss, or maybe they just called it the 4x4. I don't know. But that's always seemed unnecessary. For one, that adds a lot of complexity and weight, but also this thing's hard enough to turn as it is due to the lack of a rear differential. So imagine adding driven front wheels into that equation. You'd just be going in a straight line all the time. On the left side of the handlebars, you have your brake handle, which controls only the front brakes, and you can lock it in place using this little trigger down here. You have your light switch, your engine kill switch, your starter button, and your reverse override button, which is a fun thing to play around with. On the right side of the handlebar, you have a thumb throttle, and nothing else. Here in what I suppose you could call the dash, you have your ignition key, some shift indicator lights, and your manual choke, which is this nifty little toggle. Also your gas filler. On the right side of the wheeler is your gear selector stick, a manual pull rope to start the engine in case the battery is dead, and a foot pedal to activate the rear axle brake. I call it an axle brake, but the brake disc is right here behind this plastic cover, and your caliper is right here. So really it's braking the output of the transmission, so the braking force is being transferred to the chain drive, which is interesting. The only thing on the left side of the quad TV is this fuel pet rooster right here. That's reserve, that's off, and that's on. That's it. Opinion-wise, I don't really have much to say about this four-quad wheeler TV. I mean, I like it. I love the two-stroke engine in it. It's revvy, it's zingy, it's zippy, all those words. And when it's cold, it releases big fat clouds of blue smoke when you take off, which is fun. I like this four-wheeler, but that's not the reason I have it. I have it because my grandpa, who was a farmer, bought it, I think he bought it new, for farm use. He bought it to putt around bean fields looking at beans. He bought it to herd cattle or whatever, just for general farm use. And that's why he bought it, but I have it because, well, sentimental value. He's no longer around, but this four-wheeler is, and his pickup, and I have several of his tools in my wood shop. I don't really have a use for a four-wheeler like this, especially with the small amount of land that I have. I enjoy it, but I don't really need it. But because it belonged to him, I feel like I can't really ever sell it. This is just a piece of memory from him. And keeping it around is easy. One, because it's small and light, it fits anywhere, but also it's remarkably reliable. It starts up every year. The battery's always dead because I let it sit so long and I can never remember to put a battery tender on it. But it starts every year with the pull rope thingy. This year it had a lot of trouble starting. It just required a lot of cranking, but before that, I took the seat off and had a look at the carburetor, and all of the fuel lines going to the carburetor, aside from the main one, are deteriorated and falling off, and despite that, doesn't have any noticeable problems. The spark plug's the right color, it starts up, doesn't run too rich, it idles fine, it doesn't backfire or anything weird, so I don't know what all those lines do, but I'm going to leave it alone because it seems to be working, and it's not even leaking. So it's like a North Star engine in a Cadillac. You don't question why it's still working. You just accept the fact that it is, and you leave it alone until problems arise. So it's been remarkably reliable, and I'm planning to keep it around for as long as I can. Eventually, I'll have to look at those fuel lines, but not now. And there's more than just memories of my grandpa built into this thing. I have several memories in this thing as well. For instance, this front rack here, it's bent over on one corner because when I was 12 or 13 or somewhere around that age, I got to wondering what this override button on the handlebars did, because when I pressed it, it wouldn't do anything. And then one day I thought, hey, it has a reverse speed limiter. I wonder if this override button overrides that. So I tested it. And when I tested it, I had way too much throttle applied. So when I hit the override button, it went flying backwards. And I don't know what happened with the front wheels, if there was a differential in tire pressure or what, but the handlebars did this, and I rolled it. The only damage on the four-wheeler was this bent front rack. The handlebars got squished down and nothing else. It was still running when it rolled over. I was fine. I was wearing a helmet, but I was scared. It scared the willies out of me. All I wanted to do was test what that button did, and I ended up with an upside-down four-wheeler. As I remember it, when I was young, I was pretty cautious when driving this thing. Somewhat overly cautious. I guess I just wasn't a very adventurous youth. And I remember one time my half-brother came for a visit, Michael, if you're watching, and he drove this thing while I was on it, and he drove it way faster than I was used to and scared the dickens out of me. So after that, naturally, I went back to driving overly cautiously. I smell that two-stroke smoke. So that's my four-wheeler. I like it. I've got a lot of history with it. It has sentimental value. It's lasted a long time. It will probably continue to last a long time. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.